Martin, it started for you, this love affair you have with the FA Cup, and why wouldn't you, being a serial winner of it? 1998, Arsenal get to the final, who with? Newcastle. You win it 2-0. What are your memories of it?
I remember almost giving Alan Shearer an opportunity to score a goal, which, kind of stepped on the ball and put it into his path, and he couldn't punish me, thankfully. And we went on to win 2-0, and we had some amazing talent in that team. Nicholas Anelka up front, a player, was just truly magnificent player, was never given the credit he deserved. Mark Overmars alongside, two flying machines, which is just ideal when you're at Wembley. That big open green grass behind the defenders. It was the layout of the pitch kind of gave you that feeling, didn't it? The stadium, the way it all kind of just fell away, that the pitch was bigger than anything else you'd played on.
Yeah.
And it was always, it could be lonely at the back there when the ball went over the top if there was a lot of pace around you. And certainly we used that to great advantage.
Why did Anelka never reach his full potential?
Well, I think he left Arsenal far too soon. I think he was misunderstood, actually. I think he was a great kid. He didn't speak English too well. I think people mistook that from sometimes that he was. I don't know if people thought he was being arrogant or distant. I thought he was a great kid. He was trying to open up to us, trying to speak. He was 17 years of age when he came in. I've never seen a 17-year-old quite like it. They paid £500,000 for him. I mean, when you look now at what Arsene Wenger was doing, bringing these, diamonds, rough diamonds into the football club, the Vieiras, Petit. Manu Petit was playing in as a fullback for Monaco, comes in and plays in our centre midfield. And he was truly magnificent. Him and Patrick Vieira were in a contest each week as to who was going to be player of the game. That was that good, and it was fantastic. I'll have those two in front of me anytime.
What was his attitude like on a day-to-day basis, Anelka?
Good. Nobody wanted to be. I remember we did 1v1s one day. Tony had the misfortune of being with him, and they had to send Tony in. He was so angry because he couldn't get near him. He had no backlift. He was like a gazelle. He just breezed through. He had Henri then took over. What a replacement that was! But would have loved to have seen the pair of them in the same Arsenal team. When we first came in, Jim, nobody had any idea of Anelka. And you saw the opposition responding, and I've been training against him all week, and I was giggling because they had no idea what they were going to be up against. And what I saw him do to defenders was ridiculous, the quality he had, honestly. But he still had a good career, Jim. He still won the Champions League with Real Madrid. He went to PSG. Yeah. But he became, a player that was travelling around. He went to Liverpool, he went to Chelsea. He's still an incredible talent, but it was a shame we lost him.
You look back at it now, Simon, and I think of Anelka, and I thought this guy is going to be a major star. And I think Martin's absolutely right when he says if only he stayed at Arsenal longer, we would have seen more of him at a level we knew he was at.
Well, I mean, if you look at it, he's had 13 clubs over 16 years. So there must be something in the reasons why he doesn't stick. He gets a move to Real Madrid, a big move that Arsenal couldn't resist, taking the opportunity to cash in on that, perhaps because Henri was coming through as well. He then goes from Madrid to Paris Saint-Germain, then Paris Saint-Germain to Liverpool to Man City, Fenerbahce. Then he starts to go backwards a little bit, in terms of the size and scale of football clubs, ends up at Bolton Wanderers.
He's still their top goal scorer, wasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, no doubt a talented player, but there must be something in the reasons why he doesn't stick at a football club for any period of time.
Yeah.
Longest he was at was Chelsea, wasn't it, for 4 years?
Talking about Chelsea, 2002, it was Chelsea you were up against. That was a 2-0 win for you. Remember your contribution that day? I
do. It was from the bench.
Yeah.
But
you come on in the 89th minute?
Well, just to tell the story there, because people think, you weren't a main selection. Well, what Wenger had pulled, I mean, that season I broke my leg and I went to a World Cup at the end of that season. So it wasn't a fall from my level. It was just the competition that was around me. At the start of the season, Arsene Wenger had said to me and Tony Adams that you're going to share the position with Sol Campbell. He's going to be the new man on the block and you two share that role. And it pretty well through the season with various injuries, Tony injured, myself injured, Matthew Upson, who played a number of games as well. That season he broke his ankle. So it was a bit of a nightmare in that central offensive position. And the day before the FA Cup, Arsene Wenger pulled me. We just won, I think, 6 or 7 games on the bounce. And it was kind of like we were in a rhythm, myself and Tony. And then he said, look, you're not playing tomorrow. And you can call me whatever you want, but you're not going to play. And I said, what do you mean? It's an FA Cup final. He said, no, there's a bigger game coming up on Wednesday night against Manchester United at Old Trafford. We can win the league there. So I had to go into the game at Chelsea, be professional. I was always going to be coming on in that game, really, if it went well. And then the big one was on the Wednesday night, which we also ultimately went on to win at Old Trafford. So Arsene Wenger proved himself right. But he had a very angry player in me going into that game at Old Trafford, I can tell you, because I felt I should have played in that cup final.
I can remember that. I mean, your old chum, Ray Parlour, played a blinder, did he not?
Ray was always an exceptional player, completely underrated. If you look at all the top games, Ray's playing a major part, coming in off that right-hand side. If he was asked to play central midfield, in the modern day, Ray would definitely be, if he was to come back again and have his time now, would be in the England squad regularly.
And what about 2003, 1-0 win over Southampton? But you were tested all the way by them that day, were you not?
That was a strange game for me, Jim. I had an injection before the game in a stabilising muscle just above my hip. And honestly, I could hardly walk coming up the tunnel with my leg. I'd lost all the feeling in my right leg. And it wasn't good. And it was like I could jump and land, which was the problem because I was up against BT, who was playing centre forward, and I didn't want to be done in that area. But literally, tried to wait a pass. It was still numb when I got into bed, my hip, at 3 o'clock in the morning after winning. So I was just like, that was a game I just wanted to finish as soon as it started. And I remember running backwards near the dugout and actually fell over, tripped over. And the medical team looked at me with their hands over their eyes, and it was like,
what's up?
That was a long day.
So should you not have started? You shouldn't have played in it.
Shouldn't have had the jab, but I had too much painkiller, and then it was borderline.
Does the 2001 final defeat against Liverpool still haunt you somewhat?
Of course it does. Yeah,
McElhenney.
It haunts me that I let him score 2 goals because I left. The first one was a mix-up from a set piece. Without aiming the blame at anyone, but people learnt from it. Let me tell you. And the second one was a runaway goal from a corner. I went up for the corner, although the boss was asking me why did I go for the corner. So to this day, he probably blames me, but I went up for every corner. But that was late in the game, and McElhenney scored that wonder goal from distance. I'd like to think I could have stopped him if I hadn't gone for the corner, but we'll never know.
I told him that when I saw him. He laughed at the concept that you'd have been able to stop him.
You serious?
Well, he may have laughed, but he wouldn't have scored that goal. But I don't want to be cry or have a go at anyone else. But I'd like to think I was a difficult opponent for McElhenney, an exceptional player, but he didn't have the power and strength of an Henry.
At the pace,
and I think you could lean on him. If you leant on him, you could find your way to the ball.
Stop being Team Owen, incidentally.
I'm not. I'm just saying. He said he would have smoked his boots.
Who is the better young player, Owen or Anelka?
Oof, that's a good one because they had them both in their midst, didn't they? They had them both, and maybe Anelka left because he didn't feel he was getting the rightful attention. But when you've got McElhenney in the building, at the talent that he was at the time, Jim, when he came onto the scene, it was remarkable. This rise from nowhere.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't even start the World Cup, did he? But Argentina were blown apart by his run for that goal. So I could understand the dilemma that Houllier had, but maybe they should have kept Anelka. He was, if you canvassed the players of that period, who was the most difficult player, I think most of them would say Anelka.
Funnily enough, your FA Cup final experience is largely centred in the Millennium Stadium. How does that place compare with Wembley?
Well, it was always the dream to play at Wembley, and I always felt you lost a little bit when the semi-final went there as well, because there's a pleasure to be there. That was part of it, wasn't it? Get to the final, play at Wembley. That was the dream. But I understood why we went to. The Millennium was a strange affair. The pitch was often, it felt like they played rugby on it the day before, and there was often an artificial sort of feeling about the surface because they had to keep redressing it and changing it. But no, nonetheless, it takes nothing away from the occasion when you win. It's still a fantastic day.
FA Cup final memories with Martin Keown.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.